about 70.
What, for top money?
Well, yeah, I think so. It all depends, doesn't it, really, you know what I mean? It all depends how much time you have out of the shop. It's all taken into account, all goes in the book, see?
37,000 men live inside, behind walls. Here in Wandsworth, 1,500 of them are being punished for crimes which range from motoring offences to murder, serving sentences from 12 months to life. The Home Office protects the prisoners' interests by not allowing them to discuss the details of their own cases. Neither do we on Man Alive have any way of knowing where truth is when these men talk of the police and prison officers. But at least from the men inside, one can get a view not only of prison and punishment, but of crime and law and life beyond the bars.
The following officers have been transferred from Maidstone on promotion to senior officer with effect from the 23rd of the 3rd. Officer Sims and Officer Hadaway. Sunday demonstration. Demonstration of about 100 persons is due to take place outside the prison on Sunday afternoon, leaving Hyde Park at 15:30 and should arrive here at 1700 hours. Garage. Garage site 54 Heathfield Road has been allocated Hospital Officer Hodson.
Come on in, how'd you get? Come on, how'd you get?
That's 21. What do you have?
You counted this quarter, didn't you?
Where's he gone?
Yeah.
Oh dear, no. 21.
How do you feel that you're being treated in prison? Can you put it in a nutshell?
Yeah, one word, animals. Literally.
Animals?
Yeah, of course you are. Put it this way, look. Would you lock up a dog 22 and a half hours a day? Because I bloody wouldn't. So if you wouldn't lock an animal up for 22 and a half hours a day, why lock a human being up?
But when are you locked up for 22 and a half hours a day?
Weekends, Saturday and Sunday. It's as easy as that. Every Saturday and every Sunday you're in this peak for about 22.5 hours.
Some people might say that you're getting what you deserve.
I've only got one thing to say to those people. That's a right load of cobblers. Now I'm told by psychiatrists, head shrinkers and all the rest of it, that I'm here to be helped. But basically there's something wrong with me. Although personally I disagree with it. I know what's right, what's wrong. But we're told that we are here to be helped. Yet, the boys in blue don't agree. We're here to be punished, and we are punished. Make no bloody mistake about it.
But how do you mean that you're punished, apart from the fact that you've lost your freedom?
Well, you've got the thought of your family outside, knowing what they've got to go through. Once we're in here, our troubles are over, virtually.
But do you see prison as a place where you are punished or a place where you're helped?
I see it as a place where you're punished, 24 hours a day, literally. I mean, what difference, now, coming back to this thing about being punished, you've got a jacket. On the jacket is 3 buttons. What difference does it make whether you've got 1 button done up, 2 buttons done up, or all 3 done up? As long as your jacket's done up, you're clean and reasonably tidy, what difference does it make? Yeah, if I walk down this landing with my jacket on, with 1 button undone, somebody will yell out, "Get that button done up." If I make a move to do it up and leave it undone, a little bit further down another landing, somebody else will shout. Now, if this goes on for 1 or 2 days, I shall be nicked for disobeying an order. If I'm walking around with my tie undone, the same thing can happen. Now, how bloody trivial can you get? You're not men. You're not even boys. I've got a boy at home that I wouldn't treat like that. So why the bloody hell should I be treated like it in here?
Richard, what about you? You've spent more time in prison than any of the 3 men here.
Just a case I'm used to it now, that's all. Just got to accept it. Nothing I like about it. Nothing I can like about it. I'd rather be in a single cell naturally. You've got more space to do things, but as I say, I know in this sentence I'm not going to get one. Like I say, it's different in Scottish prisons. More single cells than anything else. Yeah, I don't know why, the difference.
Well, how does Wandsworth compare with the other prisons you've been in?
Oh, the discipline's a lot worse. You just can't get away with things that you get away with in other prisons, you know? I'm not on top of you so much all the time. I mean, better not say too much.
Why not?
Pardon?
Why not?
Well, I suppose there'd be reprisals of some kind if you said too much concerning what was going on.
Reprisals who from?
Well, prison staff, you must expect that.
You must expect it.
Certainly, yeah. They're expecting that, all right. If I said too much concerning the prison, probably end up down the block tomorrow.
End up where?
Down the block.
Choking.
No, choking.
What do you call choking?
Punishment.
Punishment cell. I'm not, he's frightened of reprisals.
What, for talking to us?
I suppose, well, I don't care. They've done everything else, so, but, you know, the screws here, they're trying to, it seems as though they're goading you all the time. You got to do that button up, do this up, you come here. Well, they couldn't talk to you like it outside, because they'd have a fight on their hands. So, I mean, don't forget you've got men doing up to 4 years here, and they've got that every single day when they're out at Peter. And occasionally, a man might have home troubles or something like that. You get a screw going, you come here, what do you think you're on, and all that. The geezer might just give him a smack in the eye or spit in his eye or something. Well, he's a million, then he's down, has his head caved in and all that. He's bounced off the 4 walls.
Yeah.
And they do it. There's no 2 ways about it. They're absolute animals here.
Some of the prison officers would say that you would be expected to talk like that, that you would...
Well, of course, that's their fanny, isn't it? Well, what do I care? It don't make no difference to me, personally. But what I am, I mean, I was sent to in prison. Right now, I've got the degradation of stopping out and everything. Yes, I've got to accept that. But must I also accept their degradation and their wits, their comments and all that? It's nothing to do with them. They're just there to see that they're just there to lock me up and see how I don't do nothing wrong.
And this is the normal routine, is it?
Yeah.
Richard first, then Dennis, and you're last being the babe.
Well, not usually, well, not always last. He just, whoever fancies taking the wash next, he takes it.
But you wouldn't expect hotel accommodation here, would you? I mean, you are in prison, and a lot of people might feel that this is what you deserve.
Yes, but when I was sent to prison, what does imprisonment mean? You're losing your liberty. They don't say they're going to degrade you and humiliate you all the time. Imprisonment's enough, surely. You're still human. You're still entitled to a proper, decent wash or use a toilet. I mean, every time you go along here, if you do use the toilet at slopping out time, there's 5 or 6 people queuing up, and while you're on the seat, everybody can see you. You've got to put up with that. Punish a man, yeah, but don't make him let something less than a man.
You ain't leaders, we done, single file.
What about the other prisoners in Wandsworth? Do you get on with...
So far as the rest of them are concerned, I'm one of the sort of blokes that I keep myself to myself and make one mate and that's it. You get you get all the big time gas meter bandits, you know.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they're all talking about that they've done this for £1,000, they've pulled this job for £3,000 or £4,000. When it all comes out, they've been living in one room with a gas meter, electric meter, and they've had about 30 bob out of it. Big time gas meter bandits, you know. Real big time thieves. You've got some blokes in here, yeah, that I say have been in the big time, but 99.9% are just petty thieves, petty criminals that really shouldn't be in here. I mean, they're in here for nothing. £5 worth of scrap, £10 worth of scrap that really and truly they haven't got hold of. You've got the others that are in here for a few bob, yeah. But the biggest percentage are in here for nothing, literally. Yet they're all talking about the Rolls Royce outside and the Bentley outside, and when it comes down to it, what have they got? They haven't got a pot to pee in. If they've got nothing, well, why not say they've got nothing? This is what beats me. And their conversation, what is it? About what I'm going to do when I get out. I've got this job lined up, £5,000–6,000. 5,000 or 6,000 pennies, yeah, but not pounds.
Do you ever think about the people that you're taking the money from?
Well, see, what I do, I don't sort of go in for housebreaking and smashing up people's homes and all that, working class people. See, if I do a job, I go into a place where I know that the person is more or less covered by insurance, and the only people that lose is the insurance people. I mean, it's like somebody that owns maybe a shop or an off licence, something like that, and they come in the next morning and find out that there's £600 worth of stock missing, plus the damage. They're not really worried one or the other because they get straight on the insurance company.
But what difference does this make to you in your own mind? I mean, you're still committing a crime, aren't you?
Certainly, yeah, but as regards, I mean, breaking into houses, I don't go in for that. It's not my line at all, you know what I mean?
Do you have any feeling of guilt at all when
No,
you...
none. I used to, but you just get immune to it after a while.
What changed your mind, do you think?
Well, I don't know. I suppose you just get used to it. It's just you just take it as an everyday occurrence. You know what I mean? I mean, it's the first 4 or 5 times it's the hardest. You get a bit nervous and all that sort of thing. But it just automatically it just comes easy after that.
Do you plan to go back to crime when you leave?
Well, that's very hard to say. I mean, I've got quite a while to do yet before I get out. I suppose I could change. But
in what way? In what way is prison a deterrent then?
Well, it's no deterrent really. I mean, for people like me, because I mean, they shut you in here like animals and say, "Oh well, that's it. He'll learn when he goes out." I mean, you just go out the same way as you come in. I mean, they don't. As far as I'm concerned, they don't do a lot to help you, especially here.
Well, how does Wandsworth compare with other prisons?
Well, this is worse than anywhere else.
In what way?
Well, there's no association. You're locked up all the time from 4:30 in the evening, every evening, day in, day out, month in, month out, and you don't get out. Even the weekends, you don't get out. You have 45 minutes exercise on a Saturday and a Sunday, and that's your lot.
Well, when you get out of Wandsworth, does the thought of it not put you...
No, well, it's a funny thing about this. I mean, it is a strict prison. I mean, it's got to be strict, really, but it just doesn't... You know you can do it again, and you know if you get sent into prison the next time, you know exactly what you, like what you expect. I mean, you know the whole routine, and you know exactly you're going to go through all the same thing again as you went through before, so it's... I reckon the more you come in, the more easier it gets. You seem to accept it, you know what I mean, as you come in here.
But how do you accept the boredom, the fact that you can't associate with the other prisoners, and then at night you're here on your own in this cell?
Well, that's the hardest part, really, but if you get interested in books or reading or keep your mind occupied, it's hard to do that, but I mean, if you just sit there and browse all night long, browse on the weekend and all that sort of thing, it just gets you down in the end. You probably end up going around the bend. But you've got to just keep your mind occupied. You've got to get in the habit of doing a certain thing, just more or less to keep keep them going a little bit round the bend, if you know what I mean.
But you spend hours and hours in here on your own, don't you?
Yeah. I spend all my time in here, only from the time I go out to work.
You can't read all the time, can you?
Well, I don't read all the time, just sometimes I might just doze off to sleep. So, I mean, really and truly, you can't afford to crack up. I mean, you've got to just sort of keep just as normal as you can.
Michael, you're sent to prison from a court, and you're taken to the court in the first place by police.
That's right.
What is your attitude towards the police?
Well, I can put it in one quick phrase. The police that has arrested me and who I know, and all the dealings that I had with the police, I can only say that the best that money can buy. In that point of view.
The best that money can buy?
Exactly.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when you apparently get arrested, I sort of drop the hint that they can do certain favours for you and all this sort of thing. And more or less it'll cost you so much and so much, you know what I mean?
What do you mean drop the hint?
Well, just take for instance, for bail now, they can get up in the box and say, well, we oppose bail on certain grounds of we're making further inquiries about this man and all this sort of thing, and the judge automatically won't allow you bail. But if you make it known before that they go in the box and you're willing to drop a certain amount of money as a backhander, they'll get up in the box and they'll say, no objections to bail. And you get your bail and you get the backhander. That's the way it works.
Are you saying that you have to offer the money as a bribe?
Well, not really, because the police that I've dealt with, I mean, they sort of more or less hint at you. They say, well, what's it worth to us, like, not to oppose your bail? You see, and so more or less, then, unless you plead very ignorant and all that sort of thing, you get the hint in what they're after, you know what I mean?
A lot of people outside of prison would find this very, very hard to believe.
Very hard to believe, exactly. Well, they'd have to go through the same process, and they'd soon know.
Do you feel any sense of shame in following a life of crime?
Well, I've seen too much corruption of the law to worry about shame. I have felt shame, yes. You do feel shame when your wife's standing there crying her eyes out in the box speaking for you, and the judge is looking at you as if to say, well, you must be a right and all that. But when I look round and I think to myself, well, there's got to be law and order and things like that. But I've seen how corrupt everything is. You soon lose your sense of shame.
What do you mean by corrupt?
Well, if you're pleading not guilty, a judge can send down, or look, you've got no chance, plead guilty and knock 6 months off, or you'll get a lighter sentence. I won't give you no more than 2 years or something like that, just to save him time. And he's bending the rules. It's nothing corrupt, but he's bending the rules. And when you come with the police and they nick you, now there's no reason why you shouldn't have bail, and yet they oppose it unless you're willing to pull some money up. And they're more or less sending you out to thieve. You've got to find that money, and it's not obviously you need the money, otherwise you wouldn't have gone out and thieved in the first place. And now you've been captured, you've got no money, and you've got to find money to pay the police.
But what do you mean to pay the police?
For bail, or a bit of help, you know. They might not say this and they might not say that, and it doesn't sound so bad, and they get up and speak for you in court and things like that. Say this man has had matrimonial troubles, he has been working and trying, and they ain't going to get up and say all that for nothing.
But are you saying the police suggest this to you?
What?
And ask for money for this?
Yeah, they definitely ask for money. They definitely ask for money.
Do you think anybody outside of here would believe that if you told them?
Well, of course not. But the general public think the police are infallible. But the people in London who are living in the slums, maybe not so much the slums now, but the where the slums used to be, the East End and these sort of places, they know this goes on, and they will accept it. But the people, once you get on the outskirts of London and people with money, you won't get it. People won't accept it. But it's true, all the same.
Do you think it's right that there should be law and order?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Should there be crime, then?
No, there shouldn't be crime, no, but every man should be given they say every man's given an equal chance, but somebody's got to do all the rough jobs. And that man who's got to do all the rough jobs must hold how can I put it? He must be uncontent with his life. If he's got to go out and he's got to put a 44-hour week in for £15, £16, he's got to go and pay a £5 rent, and he's got a wife and kids to keep on £11, the income tax they want their whack. He's not going to wind up with nothing when he's 50 or 60.
But that's what's called an honest living, and thousands of people do it every day in life.
Yeah, but it's not. I'm not satisfied with it. I mean, I'm not prepared. Why should I go out and knock myself out for a governor? He do nothing. And he's got a nice 10 grand home, a nice big Rolls or a Jag or a nice motor anyway. His wife's well kept, his kids are well kept, and my kids have got to run around in rags, and I'm doing the collar. I'm not satisfied at that. I want a better living.
When the price of it might be years and years in prison.
Yes, possibly, yes.
That's the gamble.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I've had to struggle all my life, so these places don't make no difference, do they?
What do you say about this, Richard? You spent a lot of time in prison, more than Dennis has here.
Yeah, well,
do you think it's worthwhile?
No, it's definitely not in my case. It's definitely not worthwhile. I mean, I've never really had anything out of crime in that sense, you know. I've never had a lot of money or anything like that, you know. Yet I still do it. But it's still an easy way to live as far as I'm concerned.
An easy way to live?
Yeah, well, it's. I mean, I've got to accept the imprisonment when I come in. So I just accept it the best way I can when I come in.
Can you remember when you first began thinking like this?
Oh, it was a number of years ago. My first my first time was Barstow, actually, was in 1952. And since then, I've more or less never been out for any great deal of time. I've never been out of the jail anyway. It's just been a case of in and out.
So you live a life of crime, you're not very successful at it.
No,
but it's good enough for you.
Successful.
And you're going to pursue this?
Oh, I mean, I know, but I don't want to. I don't mean I want to carry on this way, continue this way. I mean, I know it's no good. I'm going to be in and out all the rest of my life, am I? But sometimes you're in a position that you know you've got to do it when you go out. But you've maybe no place to stay when you go out. You've got no chance of any help for the government in any way, assistance board or anything like that. They'll give you a voucher to go to some model, as they say, or doss house, something like that, where you're just not going to accept that kind of life. And then out of these kind of places, that's worse than being in prison. So like, I'd rather be in prison than being in one of them.
But how do you accept this kind of life, where there's 3 of you in a room measuring 7 feet by 12?
Well, it's just a case of when I'm caught for the crime I commit, I know I'm going to prison. There's no such thing as chances and suspended sentences with my record. So, when I come in, I've got to try and make the best of it.
But this for me is the first time I've ever sat in a prison cell. And, you know, I don't ever want to come back into it again. And I would have thought that this would be, you know, just seeing this would be sufficient deterrent for most people. Yet you have years of it.
Yeah.
And still you can't.
Yeah, but you're getting a decent living, aren't you? You've had the opportunities. Let me put it that way. You've had the education, the opportunities. Your mind's more developed. Whereas us, we've been to the, like, secondary modern, top whack, and booted out onto the world.
Well, there's plenty of kids from secondary modern schools doing all right.
Yeah, but there's plenty ain't doing all right and all.
Well, my education wasn't sensational, and I think I've worked a bit for what I've got.
Oh yeah, not saying that you haven't worked, But don't say that you don't deserve what you've got. I ain't saying that at all. But how can you put it? Was you brought up in the slums?
No, council estate.
Or, I mean, when you're brought up in the slums, how can you... You just... Everybody's at it. Everybody's at it. And that's it. You just accept it. Say, oh, he's away, he's away, he's away. Where is everybody? They're all away. And then they come out and they educate you a bit.
But isn't this a bit of self-pity then?
No, I don't know. Self-pity doesn't injure. I will look at it this way. I'll go out, I'll get captured, I'm caught, that's it. Now, providing the sentence is fair, I've got no screen.
But is it in no way a deterrent?
No, it isn't. Definitely not. I mean, what is there about any prison to deter a man from, as soon as he gets out, from knocking the first little old lady across the head and taking her handbag? None at all.
But are you saying that your time in here, that there is no effect for good? Does it
None
not?
at all, no. There's... Once a man gets away from the prison, once that wicket gate shuts behind him, and he's said his number and his name for the last time to the screw on the gate, as soon as he gets out of the gate, he thinks, now, up you, mate, I've finished. You can go and take a jump. And it's forgotten with. When he sees a screw outside, he just looks at him as if he's shit. And that's it. You don't want to know. You forget all about it. I've done it.
But do you gain nothing at all?
I
from being
gain
in prison?
nothing. Nothing whatsoever. Put it this way. 1957, I was sentenced by a judge in Bradford who turned out to me and said, now, I'm not going to send you to prison. I'm going to sentence you to 3 years corrective training. Now start laughing. I went back to Leeds prison for 6 weeks. I came down to this prison for 3 weeks. I went to Wakefield prison for the finish of my time. I was treated no different to a lifer. No different whatsoever. Yet I was in for corrective training. I was supposed to have been taught a trade. Now what trade was I taught? Nothing. Except how to mop up a landing 60 yards long in 10 minutes flat. That's all I was taught here, Nick. That's all I've ever been taught here, Nick.
Right, stop work, stop talking.
Well, supposing you were planning to do something illegal once you got out, would you be taking into account in your own mind what the sentence might be if you were caught?
Well, it's all according to the crime I was going to commit. You see, I know if I'll go out and I'll commit a crime, which is different to what I've already been captured for, I could possibly get a lighter sentence than what I'm doing now. It all depends on the crime. But if I was going to go on an armed robbery or anything like that, oh, I know I was going to get plenty of bird.
So how would this affect you?
Well, if I was going to get plenty of bird, you may as well say I'm putting my life at stake. So I'm prepared to go do whatever needs doing.
What do you mean by that?
Well, say everything goes all right, well, that's it. And I'll get away and that's it. Well, I'm satisfied. But say something was to, something goes wrong and I'll get a chase or something like that. One of these have-a-go merchants make themselves busy. Well, I'm prepared to hurt them to get away or do anything that needs doing to get away.
Anything?
Yeah, anything. Well, when you're talking 15 and 20 years, which is what they're giving you now, today for armed robbery, you've got to be prepared.
Prepared to go how far?
Well, even to kill if it's necessary, because in 10 or 20 years' time, or 15 or 20 years' time, I'm finished, aren't I? What am I going to be? Let out just an old age pension? I wouldn't even get that.
But what about the other man's life?
Well, I'll look at it this way. What's he putting at stake? The money or his life? There's no need for him to put his life at stake. Why try and catch me?
Why what?
Why try and catch me? I mean, how can you put it? It's very awkward to put it. These men who are going out committing these crimes, they've been through the mill, they know the score like, and they know what they're going to get if they get captured. So therefore they're going to be as vicious as people can be to get away if something goes wrong.
But what if this was a wages van and this was manned by people whose paid job it is to protect that money against such as yourself?
Well, they're not paid enough money, I don't think, for them to lose their lives or be maimed or something like that. They're paid to protect it, yes, but what against? They've only got sticks.
What might you have?
Well, the same as everybody else has got when you go and do a wages fee and guns. And if I'm not in that position, but if I was ever going to do anything like that, where it'd be sacrificing 15, 20 years, I wouldn't hesitate to kill if it meant that to get away. If it meant me to kill somebody and get away with it, and then just walk the streets normal, well, I'd kill. But if it meant me, like, just giving up and then going and getting 15 or 20 years, well, I would never give up. How can you give up? You can't give up. You can't do no business on them sort of things.
What do you say about this, Richard? You've done a lot of time in prison.
Yeah, well, I see his point entirely, because if I knew I was going to jail for the same length of time as Dennis says, but the only thing is, I'll say, is I don't think I'll ever be in a position where I'll be on anything so serious that I'll have to do that. But if I had to, I would be prepared to kill as well. But I don't think, I couldn't accept that anyway. If I was going to prison for 15 or 20 years, I think I would take the easy way out. To me, I just couldn't face it. Not that kind of sentence. Well, I think I would try and commit suicide rather than face 20 to 15 or 20 years imprisonment.
Right, let me introduce the Deputy Governor. He's going to say a few words to you.
I hope you'll forgive me if I speak badly because I've got a cold. I think it's drinking out of wet tank, as they say, you get this all that way. Now what I'm doing is to address these remarks to the newly joined officers, and I'm going to keep referring to notes because there are a lot of very important things that I hope will stick in your minds for the rest of your service. If one thing sticks in your mind, then I'll be happy. The reason for this particular meeting is that when officers first join, we try and arrange for them to meet with some of the officers who've been here for a considerable time. And for instance, this evening, you new chaps will find that you've got officers with 10, 15 years service in, and officers with 2 years service in, and some just past probation. And the idea is that now that you're meeting these people, you'll know who to go to if you want help or any questions answered and so on. Prior to this, you saw the governor, you met the governor, Mr. Beastie, and he's told you what he expects of you as officers on his staff. Now, from there, what I'd like to say is that, in my opinion, you're very fortunate indeed to be starting your service at this particular prison. It's an interesting prison. I'm going to ask you all the time that you're here that you do your best, that you become professionals, and that you don't let the governor, yourself, or your colleagues down in any way at all. We're a good team at Wandsworth, and we want you to fit into this team. Don't forget, first of all, that you're prison officers. You're not prison warders. The only warders I know about these days are people who look after fossils in geological museums, and the people you look after are not fossilised by any means. They're active and very much alive, and your prison officers specially selected to look after them. A responsible job. So I don't want you to forget that. The other thing is, for goodness sake, don't do what a lot of people do these days and draw a lot of fungus on your face. You know, these cyborgs out here and so on. You're all good-looking chaps and you're handsome and clean, open, honest faces, and I'd like the inmates to be able to see as much of your face as they can so they can assess the sort of man they're dealing with. Keep yourself smart and clean and tidy. Now, what about this prison that you've come to? What is Wandsworth Prison? 1851 it was opened because of overcrowding at Brixton Prison. It was originally constructed to accommodate between 700 and 800 prisoners. The facts of life are a bit different now, and we're now accommodating 1,500 on average, and the figure's rising. Wandsworth is the allocation centre for the south-east of England, and our job is to receive men, decide what sort of prisons they're suitable for, and then arrange for their assessment and allocation and transfer to other prisons. So we get a lot of men from other prisons, and many of them stay here. The prison's overcrowded, obviously. We don't like overcrowding. There are still a lot of out-of-date arrangements, and all the time we're trying to improve things, and you'll see new tiles, new paint, improved lighting, and so on. After security, which is your primary task, you know, security first of all, comes this business of allocation, assessment, allocation, training, treatment. We pass them on for the training and treatment to other places if we can. The trouble, of course, is these days that we haven't got enough prisons for them to go to. Business is brisk, and we find that although we've got the men here, we can't get them out to the regional training prisons. There aren't enough places, so a lot of men are going to stay here, unfortunately. Now, what about the types of men that you're going to meet? This is important because, you know, you're specialists in man management and the control of people in prison. The types of men you're going to meet, and I'll just reel a few names off, don't worry about them, be inadequates, aggressives, gang adherents,
people who are anti-authority, anti-social, people who are depressives, people who are emotionally unstable, immature men, sophisticated men, some evil and difficult men who've chosen a life of crime, and of course you'll find some very pleasant people, people that you'll find you get on with anyway. All the sentenced men here are serving over 12 months, and most of them have had probably more experience of prison life than you. You must bear that in mind for a start. What you've got, in fact, is a prison for recidivists. They're all men, and they're all different, just as you're different from me, and so on. And it's always worth bearing in mind, if you can, that every man is a small world of his own. Try and remember that. Every man is a small world of his own.
It's probably really a question of just what you want out of life.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what do you want?
Well, I want my kids to be proud of me. That's the main thing, even though 2 of them aren't mine. I want my baby to have what I've never had. That's a home with a mother and father behind her. I want my kids to be able to turn around and say to their friends or what have you, that's my dad. He'll do anything for me, and I would. But if I thought any one of my kids were going to finish up in these places, I'd kill them at birth.
Well, just what will you do when you go out of here?
Well, the first thing I've got to do is find a job. With any luck, I can get back into carpets. If I can't get back into carpet, all right, well then I've got to find something else.
But what kind of a job will it have to be for you to make you feel it was worthwhile to go straight?
Any job where I can take home a reasonable wage to my wife at the end of the week, and also know at the same time that at the end of a week's work, when I've paid my missus, I've also got a few bob in my pocket. Because I don't see any percentage in going out to work for £18 a week, slogging my guts out, tipping up £18 a week to my missus, and then having to scratch from her for the rest of the week for my bus fares. And I've done it, but I won't do it again.
You'd rather thieve than that?
I'll go thieving first. And I've been thieving for 5 years. I always said that once I got married, that was it, finished. I said it in 1964, screwing, I don't want to know. But I was single. But rather than see my kids go hungry, or without shoes to their feet, I'll go out screwing.
But lots of people do work for £18 a week and for a lot less.
All right. So, people work for £18 a week and less. I won't. If they want to scrap and fart about for £18 a week, by the time they take it home, they've got what, 16, 15 pound a week? If they've got 3 kids, how far does it go? That's not for me.
But why are you so different?
I'm no different. If a man is satisfied to take home £15 a week, not have a smoke, not have a drink, I don't drink anyway, not have a bet, which I don't do anyway, right? If he's satisfied to take home £15 a week, he's got to keep something in his pocket to see him back to work the following week. So what's the most that he can give his wife? £12? Right? Now out of £12 a week, she must be paying at least £3.10 a week. What's that leave her? £8.50 a week? She's got 3 kids to feed and clothe? No, not me. I've seen it, I've tried it, and it don't work. If you've got any debt whatsoever, if you've got even a sideboard on HP, that's something that's coming out of your wife's housekeeping. You can't do it.
Well, it might be hard, but lots of people do it, and they call it an honest living.
Oh, do me favours. Look, if you're taking home £15 a week, you're paying £3.10 a week rent. 999 people these days out of every 1,000 are living on HP. Things have got to be paid before they can buy their grub. Now, by the time they've paid the HP out, what have they got to live on? £4 or £5 a week? And how far does it go these days? You can go down to the greengrocers, pound of apples, pound of bananas, a few spuds, greens, and what have you, and you've done £1, you can go into the baker's, 2 loaves of bread for the weekend, maybe a cake or a few biscuits for the kids, you've done another £0.50. You've still got butter, meat, cheese, sugar, tea, milk, bread. Bread we've had anyway, haven't we? Coke, gas, electric. How far does it go? What sort of living is it?
But what sort of a living is it if the head of the family is constantly in prison?
Inasmuch as she's got 1 mouth less to feed, she's drawing £11, £12 a week, which is not much less than what she was drawing when the old man was there. She's got 1 mouth less to feed, and if anybody comes rat-tat-tat at the door, a way out of it, mate. My old man's in Nick. But I don't see why I should go out and slog my guts out for £18 a week for anybody, and I won't. 20, 25, yes, because then I can just about make a living. Just about. That's why I started in the first place of driving my own vehicle, because I couldn't earn enough working for other people. Here I am.
But it's often said that the man who follows a life of crime must be a little bit daft. He must be balmy, really.
Why must he be balmy?
Well, how often does it pay? It hasn't paid for you.
It hasn't paid for me, no. It hasn't paid for what? 99% of them in here. But they think it has. They've made something out of it, all right, they've got caught, that's it. But the only thing Nick has taught me is, don't get caught. Do what you like, mate, but don't get caught.
The authorities in charge of Wandsworth Prison allowed us to film where we would and what we would with few restrictions. They knew that some of the men, indeed most of the men in prisons like this, would talk bitterly and even angrily, not only about prison conditions, but about prison officers, about policemen that they believed to be bent or crooked, even about bent and crooked justice. Now, there's no way that we can substantiate the truth of what men say when what they say is general and unspecified. And it's difficult for either the prison authorities or the Home Office to know how to respond to general accusations of corruption and brutality. But perhaps what one can learn from them, and the Home Office knows this too, is that this is the sort of attitude that is generated in old-fashioned prisons like this, where because of overcrowding and lack of facilities and staff, the men are likely to become convinced that they are in a minority against a world which is both corrupt and brutal, a world they see as determined to lock them away for punishment rather than treatment. That's why next week we follow the progress of some of the men we've spoken to here in Wandsworth when they transferred to a new experimental prison called Coldingley, an industrial prison which cost more than £1.5 million, designed to give these men something that may make it worth their while to stay on the outside when they're released, designed to give them back some of the dignity that they need if they are not to become convinced that the world is all corruption and brutality.